our bartender and
Sits,
everything.
sitting in the park bench.
Welcome, welcome.
Nice. Look at that.
So do you want to know how I got into ESO, Noonie?
Sure, sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. So GTA was a big favorite of mine for 5 or 6 years. Was in a big crew over there, and a couple of the guys that were in that crew said, "Hey, if you like GTA and everything, you might like trying this. If you like fantasy games and stuff too." And I said, "All right, I'll try it." And downloaded it. It was on. I bought it when Somerset came out, so I've had it since Somerset. And I picked a sorcerer character to start with, and I hated it. Didn't like the way the spells were cast and everything. It was strong. I remember it being strong feeling, but I went out and deleted it and made a warden, and I've been on a warden ever since, Noonie. So,
I see.
and this is a warden that I've been on ever since. But yeah, that's how I got
Oh,
into ESO. Is from GTA actually. Some game guys that I hung out with over there that brought me over. So
oh,
I
really
still play
cool.
with them.
And oh, that is awesome. Yeah, life experiences. And is Elder Scroll your first MMO, or have you played other MMOs
I
before,
used to
like
play
fluently?
RuneScape a lot on PC. I've played World of Warcraft and everything. I was a big D&D fan when I was a teenager. So I've played MMOs for a long time, RPGs and stuff. So I've always enjoyed that type of gameplay and questing. I was
Oh,
I was a big fan of Dragon Quest. It's a big questing game, and things like that. So I've always enjoyed these type of games. So this is how I got
I
into it.
see.
And
Yeah,
actually, housing
interesting.
is what captivated me at first with this game. Um, I got really heavily into housing. I highly suggest that if anybody's new to the game, that they read everything, bookcases, recipes, plans, motifs, style pages, all the things. Read them all, because it takes a long time to get your crafting up. But then you're able to do pretty much anything in the game as far as gear and everything, especially when you get to endgame stuff. So, but yeah,
Oh,
housing was
yes.
what captivated me, and then I got away from it and started falling in love with trials.
Well, housing is very addicting. As a matter of fact, we always get a good laugh about it. But the closest thing to endgame for most people is probably housing. That's probably the
Yeah,
end game of Elder Scrolls as
it's
well.
the true
I
end game.
mean, it's very addicting.
I did it backwards. I did it backwards. Everyone says I did it backwards. I didn't really. I played dungeons and stuff, and I didn't. It was actually through my housing guild that I learned how to do a rotation. I learned how to do dungeons. People that were in the housing guild actually helped carry me through a lot of stuff. Showed me a lot of things that were. They were. It was great for the social aspect. To be able to socialize and get into stuff that you typically wouldn't get into. And
Yeah.
Family Guy, who I play with all the time, he came from GTA, and he always helps me a lot with this game too, as well. You always need a buddy with this game, somebody
Oh
to
yeah, yeah.
help you out. So
It, how's Family Guy doing? It's been a while.
he's doing good. He just got he's been getting his hard modes done in dungeons, so he's checking them off the list.
Oh, nice, very nice. It's funny because talking about housing and stuff. I remember that there was one DPS,
Uh
and it
huh.
just brought me to memory lane. Years ago, there was one DPS who he was really big into housing, and we are trying to get him to parse because he was like, I remember his was like, yeah, I want to get to end game, blah blah blah, and I was like, oh sweet. So weeks go by, and I tell him, well, have you been working on your parse? He's like, oh, I'm gonna get to it. I was like, so what you been doing the last 3 weeks? And then the fun part, he was like, oh, is that you don't understand, Oni? I've been trying to fix my house.
Right.
So so any one of us who knows about housing will tell you that once you get into housing, you're
Weeks.
stuck. Yeah, you're
Weeks.
you're not gonna do anything else.
This house
Forget
here
about.
took me about 4 or 5 years to put together to get the statues and everything accomplished in it. So yeah, it takes a long time.
Yeah, so he was really into it, and he probably got a little upset with me, but I was like, bro, I just told him nicely, I'm like, forget about in game, you're not coming. He's like, why? I was like, he got really, he probably left the party, and I was like, don't waste your time,
Aw,
and but
he's a
it was a
housing
friendly
addict.
conversation.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
It takes a while to pull away
yeah.
from the housing. You have to really, like, I had to get fed up with it. All,
Oh, it's addicting.
it was because the competitions are really fun to participate in and everything. So now when I build for myself. Like this was totally a selfish build that I did for the Daedric Princes. It's lore heavy, It has to do with which Daedric Princes get along and all that. And it was, you learn all that stuff as you play the game, reading the books and things like that. which is the fun part of the game. Kind of one of the aspects of the game that is part of ESO. So,
Oh yeah, I remember when I got all my dungeon DLC clears. The trophy bus you get.
hmm
So I got to a point that I wanted to make a whole trophy thing case for
right.
in my house. But if you ever go back to my house in the Rift, it looks like it's still under construction. It's been under construction for years, and there's a reason to that, man. Is because I know once I start, it's hard to, yeah. So I just kind of stay away from it.
I can
I
take you
get
to
it.
my
It's
trophy room. You want to go to the trophy room? We'll go to the trophy room.
okay.
All
We
right,
can
it's at a
definitely do
different
that.
house. Yeah, we'll do that
Yeah,
while we
let me
talk.
know when you get there.
No
Oh,
problem.
absolutely. Let me know when you're there. Yes. Yeah, I
So,
started about 2015,
did you?
2014. Yeah, but my story was kind of like well, first the first thing is I did play a little MMO, but I wasn't big into MMO. As a
Uh
matter of
huh.
fact, I was probably into sport games and I did play a little RPG. I did
Right.
play some Dragon Age.
Oh, that's a
I
good
did
game.
beat Dragon Age, but MMO was completely different for me.
hmm
And if you know, 2014, 2015 was not the best year for Elder Scroll. Had a
No.
lot of glitches. So my brothers invited me, and I tried it. I didn't give it a good try. I probably was like level 10,
hmm
and then I didn't play for like 6 months.
Right.
Then when I 6 months passed by, I decided to give it a good try.
Right.
A good try. And as I did, then I got into it, and then I started really getting serious into the game. Well, as serious as you can be as a casual, You're not.
hmm
I can't really say serious when you're like in level 20. As, but at least was giving it a better chance then. So it took me some time to really get into the game, but once I did, oh, I was hooked.
Oh yeah, and it's fun because I enjoyed the farming right off the gate and stuff. Having all the in the quest. I enjoyed questing a lot,
Oh yeah,
and I did a lot of that at first. It was really the only thing I found. I'm glad they've changed and made changes. To quality of life improvements like the quest marking and stuff. Because when I first started, the biggest problem I think I had was figuring out what storyline I was doing. You know,
yes, it was
and
too
following
overwhelming.
it and following it because I was all over the map. I was doing Mages Guild, Sigil Guild, especially with Somerset. There's a bunch of skill lines that dropped. And we got this house for free in Somerset. My friend
Oh
took
yeah,
me.
I
It was so
remember.
funny. He took me to all the places in Somerset to go to get the house, and I had no idea what he was doing to help me get this house. This was when I first
Yeah.
started, and it's taken this whole time to get it decorated because this is a big house too. It's one of those. The bigger the house, the harder it is to decorate.
Here we go. Here's the trophy
Here's the
case.
trophy
Really?
case.
Yeah, so I wanted to do something like this. My house is probably too small for it, but this is pretty good. I like this.
Your
Nice
minstrel,
memorabilia.
your minstrel manor will hold all your busts like this and approximately 20 of these heads, because it's a 600 slot house. So
Oh,
it won't
very
hold
nice,
quite
very
as many,
nice.
or 20 of these, busts back here. This is maxed out though. I have to take ones away to put ones down now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, another thing too is Elder Scrolls was very overwhelming at the beginning because back then it wasn't beginner friendly where like the map was a bit
Mm-mm.
confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Even quest and like you said, it's gotten better now for
Oh, the quality
beginners.
of life improvements are much better now, definitely.
Yeah,
And
but
it,
and there's no guide to like carry you or hold your hand. I mean,
mm-mm.
it's literally everything had to be YouTube and Googled, and Google was terrible for maps back then for Elder Scroll. It's a lot better now.
It
Now you
is.
got the apps and stuff.
And I think it's really helpful that there's, if you are a social person, this game is definitely a great game for people who are social. Even if you're not like a social person out in real life, it's easier to socialize sometimes on the internet through parties and stuff. It's good to find a social group right away to help you kind of guide you through the game. It's just take your time, take your pace. Like I took my time for the longest. My friends were trying to push me to get to level 50 as quick as possible,
Oh,
and
that's the biggest mistake.
I agree. So like I didn't listen to them, and I just did my thing. And it took me like 6 months to get to level 50, and I was playing every day. But I was taking my time. I was running through the quests and the dungeons, and just exploring the world because it was so overwhelming. It's a big map. It's a huge map, which I love. But it took a long time to get a grasp of how big it is because it goes now. It's even bigger, with the DLCs. So it's
Yeah.
it's a big
Ta
map.
Talk about power leveling. I mean, I can go on and on. I'm not really gonna mention too much, but one thing I will
Yeah.
say about power leveling is it brings a lot of issues. And you'll
hmm
see it in the end game community. one of the biggest problems is power leveling, where you have someone who's just not ready, and
Right.
it's not their fault. It's really the
Hmm.
guild master's fault for bringing people in there like that. But the thing is that like I said, there's like 75 to 85% casual players, and then maybe you got like 10 to play 10 to 15 to play PvP, and then maybe 5 to 8%. I would
Right.
say
The
10. I
end
mean,
game.
I'm not too accurate there, end gamers. So
Hmm.
you got a couple hundred, couple thousand playing end game, and
Right.
then millions that are casual. So there's always a shortage in the end game community, as
There
far as
is.
and then
It
people come and go. It's
it
just
takes
very
it takes
grindy.
commitment, and by the time you get to the end game, it is such a grind to get to it. If you do it, if you work at it every day, so it takes a long. It takes a passion for the game to really want to get those achievements. But it is such a good feeling when you do get them, because you've worked so hard towards them. And like
Oh
it's
yes.
changed. When I started, I was able to heal. Well, you can still really heal really well on a high elf, but don't let anybody tell you that.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
They do
that
great
that's
crit
that's
heals.
well, part of bringing you in today as well and drinking some coffee while we chat is
Right.
also your experience as a healer. And one of the cool things about healing or even the support role is that people are misguided at times because they feel that everything has to be meta, where a lot of it's situational,
It
and
is.
there's just so many, like I can bring in the chat 20 different healers, and
Mm-hmm.
they and even though they're end
They're
gamers,
all gonna run
and I
different,
swear they're all gonna run different. I
slightly
mean,
different. Yep.
yeah, the only time they don't run different is when the raid leader, if the raid leader is very heavy meta, then he might
Or it very specific about what he
uh,
wants with the group. Like when I did
yeah.
Shield of the North for that KA, I wore not a set that I typically wear, and it's actually a really great set for 4 man. It's overpowered for the which is MA and Sax, and it was a new set for me, and I was scared to run it. But if you know how to heal, you're fine. It's one of those things. It's just playing the character, getting to know your role, learning it inside out. You know, learning the other skill lines, putting it all together and stuff. And then also talking to people. I've talked to so many great healers that have helped me along the way. I'm so grateful for all the help that they've given me to help me learn, mechanics and things like that. Because it's a different role than DPS. DPS you can be a little bit more crash dummy. Go in, not kind of know what you're doing, and kind of survive if you know how to survive.
Yeah, it's pretty
Tanking,
straightforward. I mean, it's
right?
pretty
Tanking's another
straightforward.
world too. I don't recommend somebody tanking unless they have experience in the game because you have to learn what the tells are for the bosses. You know what mechanics are going to go off, how it's going to affect your group, what buffs you need, and everything. It's a lot more intensive. And then healing is the
Yeah.
other end of that support role. With the tanks being able to balance each other really well for the group. For your damage dealers. So.
Oh yeah, tanking is a lot of micromanaging and being getting along with the tank, and
Hmm.
because I can pretty much tell you, and even through our experiences with the garage team, um you can, even when your DPS is struggling, if you have a solid tank, you can pretty much get through anything most
Right.
of the time. But if they can micromanage a team,
Right.
um but it does take teamwork, and then of course, yeah, I do think the healing and tanking people underrate them, and they don't
Right.
realize how important these roles are.
And support is what holds the DPS up, and it really does make a huge difference. Healing isn't. It depends on the content of the game. Sometimes you don't need a healer if the group is able to sustain well enough, without the heals and everything. Because the game is set up where damage is so high now,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
survivability is so strong that the healer is almost become. It's almost better to be there for buffs and debuffs than to help the tank survive than it is for the
Uh,
DPS. You know, depending on the
absolutely.
content, of course. Of course.
Oh
So,
yeah, definitely.
and
Yeah,
that's
and
changed.
that's
That's definitely changed over
yeah.
the
So I would
years.
say because the game changed so much with the whole support, that there's a lot of misconceptions about when to use healers, when to not use healers, or even
Hmm.
DPS. Um, and because it changes, I mean, the game changes. I mean, holy cow, meta's like every 3 months.
I know. It's constant.
Something I don't enjoy from the game, because it's like if I talk to you, and you be like, Noonie, I'm using this, and then I tell you, hey, your thing is no good.
Right.
you're gonna get upset with me because I'm not talking from a meta perspective. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
because something's meta doesn't mean that you have to change it. It's probably still good, but
Right.
from a meta perspective, I tell you, oh, you got to change it. It's not good anymore. It's not meta. And then and that's when a lot of people have frictions and they start fighting and arguing.
Right.
I seen that happen so much. When in reality, you just try to get into friendly discussion and kind of work it out. Be like, all right, this is what works, this is what don't. But most people, I mean, we're not all the best communicators, but
No.
um, that's when not being toxic and being able to be sociable helps, which is
Absolutely.
hard to do. Easier said than done
And
because I could
everybody
think something's
learns
pink and you could
different.
think it's red.
Right. And it's I find that everybody learns different. And if you really are familiar with the role that you decide to play on, and I think people should stay on a role for a while, one particular role, instead of swapping around. It's fun to swap around every once in a while, but it's good to know one role really well. Because if you know that role really well, you have more confidence going in to content without it overwhelming you because you know the skills and you know what to put down and how the rotation works and stuff. The worst thing I ever
Oh yeah.
heard as a healer was that if you can't DPS, you can't heal. And there's a lot of truth to it, but it was how it was presented to me. That probably wasn't the best. It wasn't said in a very nice way, but it is true. I think everybody should start with the DPS because that goes for tanking too. You have to know how to time your attacks, and this game is very heavy on your light attacks or heavy attacks, depending on what you're doing. You know,
Oh yeah.
so
I mean, I mean, healing is not exactly DPS, but
it's
I
about
do
keeping your uptimes. It's about keeping
yeah.
your uptimes. If you can keep your uptimes at a 70k rotation with DPS, you'll be able to keep your uptimes for your shields and everything as a healer. So it's like a
Yeah.
baseline. You want to be able to at least hit 70k on DPS to be able to heal effectively for the group. Because it is a rotation. Like with tanking, it's just a different type of rotation. You know.
Oh, absolutely. We try to develop our garage team over
Hmm.
time, and talking to different people and even analyzing. I'm big into watching videos, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that, in other words, I'm kind of like an SO nerd,
Hmm.
where always researching stuff and one of even experiencing myself. And one of the things I learned is so for example, there are guilds and one of the raid leaders that I know from the other guild, um, they're really good. I respect them to the fullest. One of the things that I learned is that what they make people do is, for example, let's say let's say you're a new healer to the game,
Hmm.
and they actually watch on the Twitch or on the live stream. They'll watch you perform,
Hmm.
and it's not put in a positive manner. It's not to shit on you. It's to see that you're not over spamming,
Right.
um, and to kind of help you with your rotation. They also make
Right.
you parse. Where if you're not hitting 70k, they're not gonna kill you because they're a healer, but they want to see some fluency because and I didn't know
Healing is
that
a
for a
lot of
while.
anticipation. That's what the best advice I
Yeah,
was given right out the gate. Is especially on a warden.
absolutely.
Templars have way better burst heals as far as that goes. It depends on what type of healer you are, but wardens, for instance, the best advice I was ever given right out the gate was you always have to anticipate. So I find myself spamming a lot of times, and so SPC, it's knowing what set how you play, is really dependent on the sets you're gonna want to run and everything. Like I love to overheal and over spam heals, so I love SBC for that, and Ozan for that, for instance, because that's the way I play. I hate Rojo. I hate Rojo. I put down heavy attacks all the time as a healer, but I find it very difficult to run, for me in particular. But it's supposed to be really good on a warden. It just depends on how you play too. And that matters with teams too and how they're set up. Like you
Oh,
want to put the
absolutely.
person on the most effective role that they're able to do. You know. So
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And testing SPC, it's so good. I mean,
yeah.
I think it's a little bit underrated, probably because you can get it from easily in the vet dungeon,
Hmm.
Gold Tower. It's such an easy trial dungeon, not
Oh,
trial.
not when you
It's such an
first
easy.
start.
Now, absolutely. Not when you first start, especially a few years ago, where and that's the thing people get confused. Nowadays, a lot
It's
of the
been
old,
nerfed.
they're
Nerfed. White
they're
Moon Hunter's Keep's been nerfed to death. Like it used to be one of the hardest dungeons.
Oh,
You get past
absolutely.
that white wolf, and it's so easy now. The ranges don't come out as often, so it's been nerfed down to help. I think help people learn how to do mechanics better in a slower pace because a lot of it was being shot off quickly. And it was hard for me to see a lot of it, so I can imagine it was hard for other players as well. I wasn't the
It's
only
it's
one.
also it's also because the damage is so high right now,
Right.
overall. But
It's
another
disgusting.
thing, oh yeah, it's ridiculous. And I
Right.
could go on and on about it, because there's so many misconceptions about things like that. But I will say that yeah, damage is so high at the moment
It
that
is.
it's just sick.
But it's great
But
because it
yeah,
allows more flexibility for other DD to run like support and stuff. Like I run a brittled in on the Warden when I DPS when I'm not healing. Right, I run the brittled in, which I know the Arcanist puts down brittle, and not a few other classes can do it as well and everything. It's always guaranteed with a Warden. They get an extra boost with the ice damage, etc., etc. Things like that. It's not always, but if you don't have an EC Crow in the group, a brittled in will work. So there's things to know about the game. It just takes time. It takes time. That's all.
like
And
look, I'll give you an example of how time has changed. And a lot of people have egos and they're not gonna admit this, but
hmm
I'm humbled and I'll tell you this. A lot of people are not gonna admit it. Even someone who listens to this are probably not gonna admit it. But most people, now hear me
hmm
out. Most people, damage is so high right now that most people did not get their Vast plus two clear for many years. It is not until people started clearing Vast plus two once the heavy attack sword came out.
Right.
That is when the majority of the Elder Scroll community, you have people who for years never were, it was because Vast 2 was just so hard at
Right.
the time, didn't get their clears until the heavy attack builds. Now, are
Right.
people gonna admit it? No. There is a whole YouTube video, a whole documentary of it, but it's because damage and of course, heavy attack is a long story, but it
Right.
was just so consistent damage. I mean, you saw how it was. I mean, you clear your
hmm
Maelstrom with it.
I
What
know,
did
and
you
I was
thought
so
of
mad
what?
about it.
Well, I kind of like I kind of was like I remembered. Do you remember this? I mean, I know I'm not the most easygoing to talk. I'm very blunt,
You're fine.
which could get me into trouble. But one of
Gets
the
me
things
in
I
trouble
tell
all
you
the
was
time.
like, yeah, you were like, I didn't clear my mouth shut, and I was like, why? It was something like this. I forgot exactly what
Uh-huh.
I tell you. I was probably nicer, but I
You
was
were.
like, why? And you were like, oh, I'm like, I'm gonna try my heavy attack, and I was like, wait a minute, you have a heavy attack sword, you should be clearing it. And then from there, you
I
you
had
know
a
you
lot
like
of inhibitions about running that sword. Okay, so let me explain the thing with the sword. My whole ESO career on this game, all I've heard is if you want to clear Maelstrom Vet, run a Sork. Right? They're so easy to clear this, da da da. I don't like Sorks that much. I don't like playing them that much. So I don't hate them, but I just don't love them. And the only Sork that I had was a vampire PvP player that I have. And just role play purposes and everything. And she's a great character and everything. And then Oaken Soul came out, and Oaken Soul changed the game, like you said. It made a lot of people who had disabilities able to play since they can't do the hand mechanics and stuff. It opened up a lot of doors for a lot of players, like you said, and allowed a lot of people to get the clears that they weren't able to get cleared before. So, um, you told me to run the heavy attack Sork, and I cleared it with the heavy attack Sork. So I was super mad that I cleared it on a Sork, and it was what I call a cheese build. It's not really a cheese build. You still have to know what you're doing, and you still have to make sure your stats are right and everything's lined up right. But still, it's a lot easier build than to run a dynamic rotation on a warden, because I'm still stuck in Arena 7 on this warden in there.
the end game. We're definitely gonna talk about the infinite, or what is it called,
Archive?
dungeon arena.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the input
but
archive.
that'll be later on. That be because I can
Yeah.
talk so much about that. I'm pretty excited about that, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
If not, we'll go off topic. But
Okay.
I will say this. So I will give you your props, and here's why. Because
Thanks.
nowadays, to be a healer, you also got to be a damage dealer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of the biggest problems is you have a lot of healers, and even one of your best mentors or friends, whatever you want to call it, um, they want to blow the spot. We all love her to death, Mel.
Mm-hmm.
that healers from years ago are just healers, and that's all they are.
Right.
They're not DPSs. They're not. They don't. All they do is heal, and
Right.
that over the years that has kind of
Changed
changed
a
where
lot.
now if you're a healer, but you also have to know how to do some type of DPS or support DPS.
Right.
So the fact that you have a heavy attack Sork and you clear Maelstrom is pretty awesome because
Yeah.
you're
It's fun.
it's not something you're expected to have for
Uh-uh.
a player that's been playing so long in Elder Scroll.
Right.
Um, like I said, nowadays the new players absolutely like if I get a player in the guild and they're like, "Hey, Nuni, I'm new to the game and I want to
Hmm.
be a healer." The first thing I'm going to tell them, yes, we can train you to heal, but you also have to learn DPS.
You
It's just a
have to.
mandatory. There's no such thing as one-sided support anymore.
No.
If you're a tanky, you have to know more than tanky. If you're a healer, you have to, um,
Hmm.
it's just a different era. I
It
mean, what do you
is.
think about that? How do you
Well,
feel about that?
this character's been through a few changes. Like I told you, I started with a sword, but I ended up on a warden, and she was actually a high elf at first. And I tried healing with her, but she wasn't doing so good. And wardens weren't strong at the time in the game, so everybody suggested DPS. So I ran her as a Magdin for a long time. Well, then it became finally wardens got buffs for stamina. They became overpowered on stamina. As one of the patches they did. So I changed her to a red guard, and she was a stand-in for about 2 years, and then I finally went to a Bren. So it's been that many transitions. Like you have to be flexible with the fact that you might have to change if you want to heal or do any kind of support role. Sometimes it's better to change your race up. It's just it's like you said, it's playability and how well you play and what kind of style you play in too. But damage is the number one. Like you have to like I did damage for 4 years before I was a healer. You have to know because it's about seeing the dungeons, becoming familiar, getting used to the mechanics. Healing, you usually stand back and you watch everything unfold, but you're there to keep the group. You're never there for yourself. You're there for the group. So you need to know what the group is experiencing to be able to become I feel like you need to know what the group is experiencing as a damage dealer to understand how to heal that effectively. You got to
Oh
know when it's
yes,
the oh shit moments for the DD because they're going to get hit with a one shot or they're going to get hit with a really heavy mechanic from the bosses or the ads or whatever. And that you don't get that experience just healing. You just don't. It takes a lot longer, I would think. And I'm sure there's proficient players that can do it, but it has changed where you need to know what's going on from all the perspectives if you can help it. I suggest everybody play all the roles, of course, Uni.
oh,
It's definitely a
absolutely.
different world for everything. But tanking's my least favorable role. It's my weakest, but I still play it as often as I can because it just helps me understand what the tank's experiencing when I'm healing. It helps me understand what the damage dealers are experiencing when I damage as a healer, and so forth. So yes, you need to be flexible. I feel like you definitely need to be flexible now as a
Oh,
healer.
absolutely. Yeah, and piggybacking what you were saying, you actually made a good point about everyone should play every role. So I know as being one of the leaders of the garage team, one of the things I even though I was a heavy DPS, I try to learn all roles.
Right.
Which I can technically play all roles. The only reason I don't choose to is because you have people that are like, and I always tell people, like, sure, I can go on healer, I can go tank, but we have people who do it every day. They're proficient at
Right.
it. They have their gear, they have their setups. They're much more fluent. Um, it's foolish, and I told many people this. It's foolish. Even someone who's not that good, they're still got the reps. They still got the time. They still have the understanding. It's
Right.
foolish to be like, oh, I'm gonna take your spot, um, because I think I can do this. Because I can do this. Yeah, sure, I can do this, but the amount of reps and thousands of reps that people do, you can't beat that.
No.
For example, it's gonna take time. For example, if I go tank, are we gonna clear something? Oh, absolutely. But
As
where
clean as you would
some,
have somebody who does it every day, probably not.
yeah, like for example,
Right.
right now we have some solid tanks right now. We have
Right.
Turtle, we have Clutch.
Right.
Those guys are experienced. You know, if we're doing a hard mode, we might clear it in a week or two. If
Right.
if the fluent, me is gonna be trial and error. It might take us 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So it just if you have the talent, absolutely, but and that's what I think a lot of people don't understand. Where you can't be reps. You
Right.
gotta earn your craft. You gotta take time, and that's kind of piggyback what you just said as well. Where um, one of your pet peeves, and it's one of my pet peeves too, is that people want to do 20 different roles. No,
Oh,
stick to one role for a very long time.
and learn
Earn
it.
it,
Learn
and
it.
learn it.
Learn it. Know
Yes.
it so well that you're so comfortable on it you can do it in your sleep. That way, if there's ever a time or need for you to play something where they need somebody that's able to do some, things really well, you have that one character to fall back on that knows really well, that you can depend on. Because if you stretch yourself too thin, you don't really get a grasp, I don't think, of the game and how everything works together. Because everybody depends on everybody. All the roles are really dependent on everybody else. It's never a one-sided thing in this game. Everybody
Oh,
feeds off each other. It is a
oh,
social. That's the
absolutely.
social part of the game.
Oh
So
yeah. And talking about healing now, here's the fun part, and I want to
okay,
know your experience about it as well.
okay,
But just hear me out. So
sure.
the healing experience. Okay, so I remember years ago, and we're talking
Uh
about
huh.
2015, 2016. I
Okay.
go back because and the reason I try to go back is because the game has changed so much that I don't think people, even new people, understand how different it is now. Um,
Oh, it was a
I
nightmare.
don't mean graphic wise. I mean just gameplay in general. All right, so 2015, 16, healers. This is what we're talking about. Healers.
Mm-hmm.
Healers are wearing heal sets.
Right.
All right, now we're gonna now we're gonna fast forward. We're gonna fast forward to the year 2023 to even let's go back 2021, 2022.
Right.
Um, healers no longer wear heal sets. Healers are literally wearing damage buff sets. Um, Big difference, and a lot of explain to a lot of the healers nowadays. They don't understand that your you being a healer and your skills in your
Mm-hmm.
bar is already enough healing. What you're really doing is buff damaging. You know.
Right.
Um, yeah. How do you feel about that? What's your opinion about that? Agree or disagree?
I think I mean, it depends on how you view it. The damage, like you said, is so high now. And so allowing more buffs to be put out, that allows more damage just to be able to put more buffs. I like being able to do some damage as a healer. I always envied the Templars with their jabby jabs when that was a big meta thing to use on healers for a long time because they were able to put out a lot of damage while they still healed, you know. And I always thought that was cool. So I actually enjoy the dynamic where they've changed it more hybridish. I was always waiting for it. I always wanted to run a stamina healer, for instance. I couldn't wait. No, but I enjoy being able to put out more buffs and damage as a healer. Um, it helps the group, and like I
Oh
said,
yes.
I was always told as a healer, and same goes for tank. If you're doing any support role, period, you're not there for yourself ever. You're there for the group. So I think that really makes a difference in how you play the healing and the tanking too. Because I've been in a very terrible situation as a selfish tank. I'll tell you what. I had to log out of the game.
Uh, I see. Yeah.
And it was simple
Um,
mechanics, where the damage wasn't high enough and the tank wouldn't. I was in leeching, which is a selfish tank set, and I couldn't die. And I couldn't reset the instance, so I had to log out.
I see.
Mm,
Yeah. So talking about the
yeah,
healing, I will say this is I think I had a brain freeze. What was I gonna say? But the
the
healing.
buffs and you were asking about how is it about? Do I like doing the buffs and damage more with the healing than strictly heals?
Oh
Like,
yes,
because like you said, you have a resto bar. Pretty much everything on that resto bar is going to be able to heal the group. If it's set up.
exactly.
So the other bar, your damage bar, is meant to do damage and buff them. Buff them, buff them, buff them. So,
Yeah. Now, okay. Oh yes. So here's another problem that happens with healers,
mm-hmm.
and when you're experienced, you know a little bit better. And this is where kind of being vocal helps, because for example, someone like Mel, for example,
Mm-hmm.
Mel's very vocal.
Yes.
There's no one who's gonna shut her up. Like
Mm-mm.
you get some DPS be jerkish with her. That's just not gonna fly with
She'll
her.
cut their throat. I know.
She's and that's one of her. Yeah, but when you have a newer or even more quieter healer, they want to please the group. and
Yeah.
sometimes they don't realize that the biggest importance with support is you have to sometimes be vocal. Sometimes you there's things that you're not gonna be comfortable with.
Hmm.
How do you feel about that?
It was hard. It's still hard sometimes to speak up and tell people, that they got to do certain things and everything. You don't want to be rude to people. You want to make sure your tone's not, you know, inappropriate with them. And like you said, sometimes it's hard to communicate with others because of the way everybody learns differently. So like I'll explain something one way, but you might explain it in a simpler way that somebody else might understand better. So it's knowing how the group learns, and that's what cores and stuff are about though. You guys work as a team every week, doing the same stuff, beating your head on the same wall, until you get the synergy correct so that you guys can do it effectively. But it that takes time. When it's a pug or it's random, it's always worse. It's always worse. It's but those are also the things that teach you the most. Pugs, and I think traps and pugs are one of the best ways to learn things.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Also trying to stay humble.
yeah,
And that's what I try to do because
we all started
I'm
somewhere.
not yeah, and I'm not the easiest to deal with.
Right. I'm
But
not
one thing
either.
is to I do try play in other cores,
Hmm.
and the reason for that is because I always try to learn and also understand what people are going through.
Right.
So for example, like I'll be in other cores where one thing is, after being a leader in our own garage team, I realized that it's not easy. It takes a lot of work, effort
Hmm.
behind the scenes that many people, even in our own team, don't
Oh,
realize
it's rough.
or appreciate.
Right.
Even the meetings and stuff is not the most comfortable thing to do all the time.
Mm-mm.
And so when I go to another core, the core teams I'm in, even if I disagree with the raid leader, um, I respect them,
Right.
and whatever they want me to do, I do them, and that has taught me some humbleness that is not so easy.
No.
You're dealing with people. People have different ways. Just like I might disagree with that person, someone might disagree with me,
Right.
and you just try to get a boundary. Like, hey, all right, how can we compromise about this? How can we do it better? Because at the
Right.
end of the day, you're just trying to get the victory.
Hmm. And it's keeping that in mind. You have to be flexible. There's times where it's hard to be flexible, or you can't be flexible. But generally, if you guys are like what cores, like you're saying, if you work together continuously on the same thing, it's going to be easier than doing situations where it's like a pug situation or a trap. I've had a lot of great experiences with good healers who everything that have just talked me through things to almost standing next to me and helping me heal things. And both experiences are different, but both you learn a lot in. So it's just it's figuring out how you learn best and trying to figure out how to implement it into the game. So, and
Oh
finding the people you
yes.
communicate best with. Like I have good friends that I strictly go to learn about gear and stuff because they'll explain to me how it all stacks up. Like I have an issue with not learning how if I put this set on with this skill, how it's going to stack for like crit chance and stuff like that. Things like that. So um, I talk to my friend because he's able to explain it in a way that I'm able to understand. But like if I have healing questions, I'll talk to Mel, for instance, or I'll talk to some of my other healer friends because they have a better understanding of that sort of thing. If I want to find out about how to do fun builds, where I'm just messing with different gear sets and just trying different things, I talk to Blood because he's really good at that sort of thing. So it's finding the people that are the things that can help improve your game because and learning what you can in the game that you like the most, so you can share that knowledge back to them, in some ways too,
Oh,
because everybody helps each other.
you said blood. Which are you talking about the blood that
Blood Hunt,
used to be with coin
Blood Hunt.
or okay,
My buddy,
okay?
yeah.
I was about to. Okay, I thought you meant the blood who the Joker blood.
No,
The blood I was like,
no,
yeah.
Blood Hunt.
I was
He
like,
he's really good at doing fun just offhand builds. Things that people typically wouldn't run that actually turn out to be really good. Trying different stuff.
oh
He
yes,
stays out of the
yes.
meta as much as possible, actually. So
Yeah. I mean,
good and bad.
I try to get him, try to convince him a little teeny bit to join our group, but you probably blood. He's his own.
He does his own thing. In fact, we're gonna be playing
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3, me and him this week, because He helped me get the game actually. So he's like, I want somebody to play with. I'm like, all right, I'll play. So
And how you like that game, by the way?
I messed with it a little bit last night. I just downloaded it last night. It's really cool. I like it. The graphics are amazing. It really is cool. It's a cool game. I'm
Oh, nice.
excited.
Yeah,
I'm excited. So,
yeah. We have keep a couple people in our garage team that
I'm messing
some of
with
your
it.
teammates that, oh yeah, like
Nice.
Weetod, Shadow. It's about 3 or 4 people. They told me to get it in it. The problem is that in my off break
Uh,
I've been playing DayZ,
right.
and oh am I hooked in that game? And it's a survival game.
Yeah,
It
I'm
is
been in
probably
Lego Fortnite, bro.
oh, okay, so you understand the feeling, huh?
Yeah, it's like, well, when you get to like with this game, we were talking, we've spent so many years and time and effort in this game. You get to a point where there is that fluency, like you talked about, and you don't have to stay grinding on the game and constantly playing. It opens up more doors because you do get burned out, doing the same thing, like parsing.
Absolutely.
I don't know how you damage dealers parse all the time. I cannot stand that dummy. I know you want to talk about
Here's the thing.
parsing.
Here's the fun part because um I had a few DDs, come to me and be like, Noonie, I'm not gonna parse 8 hours a day, and I tell them, and this is when meta comes in because
Right.
we're no matter how many people maybe, everyone's pretty much brainwashed or installed with a lot of meta. Um, the only reason, I mean, me playing the game for so many years, as a veteran, you start realizing the pros and cons of it,
Hmm.
and then you realize where it's a hope when it's overrated and when it's underrated.
Right.
So for example, like if I do a personal goal, and once I meet that personal goal, I don't go over the goal or I don't go under it. It's my personal goal that makes me as a good damage dealer, because the rest is learning the mechanics,
Uh-huh.
survivability, knowing the skills in my bar, and how to help others.
Uh-huh.
But not everyone thinks like me. A lot of people are insecure of their DPS, which is okay. I mean, we all have our nervousness and issues. That's part of being a human being.
It is.
No one's perfect, but you know, but at the same time, um, they're like, oh, one person be like, I need to get 136K on my parse,
Right.
and they're flustered, and they're like, but I don't want to spend it. I was like, well, I never, I never told you to hit 100. That's your personal goal, but
Right.
it's a bit, you don't need it. I mean, all I need you to do is hit. I mean, if you want to hit a personal goal, okay, try 100K.
Right.
But even then, I'm not requiring you to do it. I'm just, I give them a minimum goal.
You as a leader for
The
a
rest
core
is,
leader is always a lot more flexible. You're one of the most flexible. You work with what somebody can do, which is something that's underrated and stuff. Because there's a lot of like it depends on the content. You have to like. I
oh
feel
yeah,
like the way the end gamers run it is if you really want to get the time trials and bust out the really hard achievements and things like that, you really have to have your mind focused and you got to be there to win it. So they're going to be stricter, they're going to be harder, they're going to be harsher. It's going to be a lot more toxic. Why'd you screw up and step in the AoE? You know better, right? Because you're expected to know what's going on when you're into that kind of content. When you're learning the end game content, I feel like there's a little bit more leniency. Like, and you allow for that, which is always a really great thing because it allows other players that don't typically run the meta to be able to participate and play and learn the stuff to begin with, and that's a big thing. Because if you don't see it, you're not going to learn it. Because that is always
yeah,
different than normal, 100%. There's mechanics like VMAL is a great example. You never see convergence in VMAL on the twins, but you'll see it in Vet, and it's one of the hardest mechanics to get a group to do correctly. I've only one banged the twins once because that's how hard it is to get people to understand what they're supposed to do correctly. And it's not a hard mechanic once you understand it. But I remember struggling with it for many many pools. Especially as a healer, because it's a whole different type of ball game for the healer versus the DD.
oh,
So
oh yeah.
yeah,
And with that being said, I mean, I get a lot on our teammates, but at the same time, the garage team has come a long way. I
it
mean,
has. They're doing good.
this team, a lot of these players, the way they're performing now, I mean, yeah, there's always mistakes, and I'm always nitpicking, but they're so much better. I
Yeah.
mean, even damage wise, everyone right now, in by January, people had to submit their parses,
Hmm.
or even between December and November. Um, there's no one. So the minimum requirement is 75K.
Right.
no one's hitting 75k. Everyone's hitting in over the hundreds.
Right.
I think our lowest hitter is probably 93k or 80k.
Right.
And that's just one person, you know. I'm talking DPS wise. Like I know you might be in the 80s,
Yeah, I'm in
which
the
is fine
80s.
because yeah, but like I say, that's just extra to the pudding. You're a healer, you
Right.
know. That's
I'm
but
gonna
I
have to
mean
keep my times
DPS
up.
DP. I mean like full time DPSs. Our
Hmm.
lowest hitter is probably 93k.
Right. The damage is really
Um,
strong. It has.
yeah, but everyone's over the hundreds,
Hmm.
which is and not just parsing. I mean, in every level, people are just better. They're
Right.
they're playing better. They're performing better. I mean, there's still things that I wish they can be better in, but
Hmm.
like I said, you're never gonna be fully satisfied. And at the same time, like you can't expect someone to play like you. You know,
No.
everyone plays different. Everyone
Everybody.
has a different understanding.
Right.
You know, but I'm happy. I mean, now we're gonna get into hard mode. So,
I'm
and like I
excited.
told Shadow, I'm excited, but I'm also gonna be patient because it's not. It's gonna take some work.
Got to be
It's not
patient.
gonna.
Yeah.
You gotta be patient. You know, we're
I
gonna
think we
go
should do
trial and
KA
error,
because
but
I've done it and I love KA.
that's actually what I was thinking about.
It's a good one
I
because they
think that
have to
would
do
be
all the
a good
ads. They have
startup.
to learn where to stand, where to be, where to go. They have to learn the mechanics. They got to learn them tiebreakers. Got to come down. You know, it's not too hard. It's not too strenuous. Children, it's pretty easy. They did hard mode on the first boss.
Yeah, they almost got it. Now, here's one thing I wanted to talk: positive and negative healing. All right, so
Yes.
here's a positive experience. So tell me what you think about this. Here's a positive experience. Here's a negative experience. Okay, the negative experience, and I'm gonna be very random.
Okay.
When you get, or as a healer, you know you're prepared. You have a mental game plan. You know what you're gonna
Right.
do. You go into a trial, and you have squishy DPSs.
Ugh.
Their health is 18, 19k health. They have no heals. They have no shields, and they step on red, and then when they die, they're looking at you.
Hmm.
How do you feel about that?
I uh I have been known to up and leave. If something is it looks like it's going to be there's things that could be sometimes it can be fixed depending on the players. And there's things that can't be fixed sometimes depending on the players. It the more open-minded and flexible somebody's going to be, the easier it's going to be to help them modify some changes on their role or whatever to help with the damage or whatever. Um, like you said, it really matters about the tanks. I think it's worse if the tank is inefficient than it is if the damage is inefficient. Because I can heal damage all day long. That's never a problem. I can sit there and heal them until they're blue in the face. They're not going to die on me. But if it's a really bad tank who can't hold the mechanics, it's a catastrophe. It's always a catastrophe. And then it becomes how many pulls do you do before it becomes monotonous, you know? So you have to it takes a lot of just how you feel that day and how the thing's going and if you see potential or not. And that goes along with what you said, like knowing your roles. Like it's always good to be proficient in all the different roles and stuff, but it's um it's one of those things. It's so like and then, it's a whole different story when it's the other way around. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. Having a solid tank that controls a team,
tank
it's
is
just
really oof.
definitely makes life easier.
Yeah.
I will say as far as the DPS is squishy and stepping on red. I mean, it does make your life so much harder as a healer,
You have to tell them.
because
You have to speak up. Yeah.
yeah, the pressure's on you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know in our garage team, we we deal with stuff like that. Now
Not too bad.
a
Ever.
couple seasons ago, maybe. Nowadays, I guess probably because I'm a pain in the ass. So you're probably gonna hear because I remember back years ago people used to call me all heel boy or whatever because they I don't know why, but they thought it as a I used to tell people misinterpret stuff. They used to, as a DPS, they used to think that I wanted their full bar full of heals um as a DPS, and no, that's not exactly what I was trying to explain to them. But either way, long story.
Hmm.
The it's more just surviving. But
Right.
either way, so I think nowadays, I don't think no one wants to hear my voice when I tell them to to stop being a squishy bastard. And if they hear it, chances are they're probably gonna leave the team because
Right.
they're just not gonna want to deal with me. I mean, a
Right.
lot of people are or with Shadow or with any of us, because it's just we're not we're try to be we're very nice people, but we also
Yeah.
try to get stuff done.
Right. We're trying
We
to
know there's
accomplish
a
a mission, so let's get it done.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we know there's a lack of inexperience, and what I mean, yeah, everybody has clear vet trials, but there's a difference as a DPS just staying behind someone and
Hmm.
getting a clear tool than actually do it 100 times, 100
Right.
time reps or something like that.
Right. Doing
Yeah,
portals a dozen times, knowing your portals, knowing your paths, knowing when things like a great example. One of my favorite trials right now is Dreadsail, actually, and it was a bitch to
it's
start
fun,
with. It was a
super
really
fun.
bitch. But the twins, the first boss, really, and I love that it's the first boss. It'll make or break a group. And if you, but the great thing is if you know how the game works in that on that fight, I've seen it where one person's left standing and able to res the group. So it really matters how well, and like you said, it takes experience, it takes time. It just takes time seeing. You may not clear it on the hard mode the first time you go through, but the second time you're going to do it tremendously better because you're familiar with the mechanics, you're familiar with what's going to happen. You know, um, and I think making sure that every DD is assigned a certain job helps prioritize the groups and everything. Because I always love when they're like, okay, you're going to kite heal, in Rockbro, for instance. And I know exactly where I need to stand when we go into that fight, that sort of thing. But
Oh
it's
yeah,
it really makes a difference. And the more end game you get, the more it's required to have people doing certain things that they're really good at. Like for instance, portals or what have it. Support DPS or whatever it may be. So.
oh yeah. Now here's a fun factor. Like going into hard mode in speedrun season.
Hmm.
Obviously um during the last season, I I kind of avoided going. I mean, I done portals for years over time. It's fun for me, but I kind of avoided going in there and got
Let
reps for
others
more people
experience,
to get
right?
their advantage. Go now. I'm not being naive. Coming to hard mode speed run, most likely it's probably gonna have to. Probably gonna be at times going in the portals because you want to be in and out. You don't want to waste too much time. But what's your feedback about last season where because everybody gave me kind of even in our meetings
Move
they kind
around.
of gave me the open eye where when I told them nope, we're gonna put every single DPS to get an opportunity to learn those downstairs or get those reps, even if they don't know what they're doing,
I think it's
and they
awesome.
did.
I think it's amazing. I think it's a
People
wonderful
were
thing.
scared.
I don't, and
People
they,
were
and
scared.
it's terrifying. But you know what? As a healer, I have never ever gotten to run the backyard in VMall. But every single time I get a
Ooh,
chance for somebody to show somebody else, I'm back there looking at it and running it with them. And I could do the backyard. I know I could because I've been back there a dozen times. And I'm a healer. I've never done the backyard. But I think it's a great opportunity because, like, my biggest problem, for instance, if I get cloud rest, for instance, and I get down in that pizza slice and I get sucked into the shadow world, I never know what to fucking do. And it pisses me off that I don't know what to do. So it's a great experience for the DD to all have to do it. So that also helps the game because if something goes awry, which it often does, you have a backup. You have somebody who's like, okay, I'm going to take the portal, and that can stop the whole group from wiping, and stop the whole thing, from being completely screwed up. You might lose some vit, but you may not lose the whole group and wipe the whole group. So I think it's really good for everybody to get practice, and they're going to be scared. They're going to be terrified. Hey, it's always good to sympathize and empathize. I was terrified when I went the first time. You'll be fine. Just trust
oh
yourself.
yeah,
You know what you're doing. You just got to go do it. That's your job. Just focus on that. And it makes that it's good for them. So, like I said, like
oh
I
yeah,
would
it's
love to run
healthy.
in the backyard in VMall. I just haven't had the chance to because I'm always healing it. But I always go back
Yeah,
there. Always. So,
yeah. I mean, I try to get every single DPS. I didn't care. I wanted air because it's only gonna make us better in the long
mhm.
run. You never know when you need a backup. Because you're a healer,
Mhm.
I know you do support DPS.
Yes.
I you guys already have a lot of pressure coming to you as healers, so
Mhm.
that's why I even if when you're support DPS, I kind of avoided bring you down there because more because I wanted you to but now that I know that you want to get that opportunity, one day I might just call you out. I'll be like, hey, it's time for you to go downstairs. And then of course everyone else is gonna look at me like, Noonie, you're crazy, because that's what they did when
Right.
but then again, if I care about what everybody's thinking, forget about it. We'll never get stuff done.
Exactly.
So yeah,
You know,
some
like
tough
my
decisions.
biggest portal scare is probably VSS because you have to kill the tiger thing down there, and I don't know if I have the damage to do it fast enough. You know, that's my biggest fear one. Like the ones like the backyard and V Mall where you just gotta tap it. You know, those are easy. Those I'm not worried about. But like the ones where it's like you have to put a lot of damage down quickly, those are the ones that scare me the most. Like Dread Cell has that too. So those are the ones that I don't really want to participate in, only because I'm afraid I won't be able to clear it unless I go with somebody who's really hard hitting. You know. So
I see. Now here's the positive experience. I know I'm going back and forth, back and forth.
right,
So here's the positive experience of having good DPS. So you're healing,
right.
right? You're healing, and no one's really. I mean, you're healing, you're putting your buffs, but the DPS, no one's really. Everyone's good health.
Staying
You know,
high. Right.
at least 20k health or higher. Food potions. People are. No one's dying. No one's stepping on red. People, even the DPS, they know how to,
They're doing good. I
they know
get
how
you.
to self. Yeah,
Right.
they have their shield. They know how to self heal themselves. As a matter of fact,
I love
all
those
they
groups.
probably ever ask, all they probably ever ask
Where
for
it's an
is
orb.
every now and then an orb.
Right.
How do you feel as a healer?
Oh, I'm in heaven. It's so great to be able to just concentrate on making sure they get their buffs and debuffs. I love groups like that because I find when the group is really proficient and they really know it. Like when I did Dramata Destroyer hard mode, I ended up with a really good group of people, and we went in there and cleared it in 45 minutes. We made leaderboard and everything. It was crazy, and it was because everybody was so proficient. And the room, you know, we were going to skip portals and the room wiped, but somehow me, a DD, and the tank all jumped at the right moment because there's like some kind of glitchy thing there. If you jump at the right moment, it won't wipe you. But apparently we panicked and jumped and we survived and we pulled up the rest of the group and cleared the thing. You know, with even with those mistakes because we knew the mechanics. You know, we knew what to do if things went wrong. You know, so when you run with a really proficient group, you really get to see everything unfold, and it makes it extremely. You just learn so much because you're like, oh, I see what they're talking about when they're when the mechanics out. Oh, I get because everybody knows what they're doing. It's like I got to do experiencing Cloud Rest, right? VCR1. I went with the healer from. She's a GM of another in-game trial group, and she stood back there with me kiting, and I could just see everything, and it was beautiful, because she was telling me what to do and everything like that. It was one of those hand-holding experiences, but it was a great experience. She did it with Rockgrove with me too, so I love kiting Rockgrove now because of it, and I feel really confident doing it because I had those experiences. So it does matter when you have a really proficient group where they can allow somebody to be taught like that. That's when it's really great, I think. So.
Oh yeah, very
It's
very
cake,
nice, very
it's
nice.
cake. It's just cake. Well,
Cake,
it
yeah.
just makes it. It's just like ah. It's like that with
Absolutely.
four-man too.
Oh yeah,
When the group's really
yeah,
good. So
yeah. I know one experience, and here's some positive, about you,
move around.
I will go back to your past a little bit,
Okay.
just to kind of tell you how you got into Garage Team. But
Yeah.
first, I do want to mention it is that so last season, and I talk about last season because last season was very successful. I mean, we didn't know what we're gonna get ourselves into.
Right.
There was a lot of meetings, a lot of talking, a lot of
Uh huh.
preparation, a lot of argument. I mean, trust me, you guys think I'm hard. Wait, if you ever talk to Shadow, and it's a good conversation you can have. Me and
Shadow's
Shadow
great.
go back and forth for hours. Yeah, back and forth.
Move
Yeah.
around, Nuni.
I could be stubborn. He could be stubborn. I know you could be stubborn as well.
We
We're
all
all
are.
stubborn.
Yep.
Yeah. So
We make it work
that
though.
that could make, yeah. Well, yeah, definitely.
Let's talk
But
about the past.
um, yeah, the fun part, and we all love Mel to death. But oh my goodness, um, when we try to set a game plan, and she can go on and on and on and on and on and on. Yeah, yeah, on and on, and I'm like, all right, Mel, awesome. She'll give us our life experience, and don't get me wrong, all that stuff is cool and fun,
Uh,
but I'm a kind of person. I'm very blunt. I just want to get to the point.
right.
So I'll be like, Dainty, how could we fix this?
Right.
And and I know you guys want to get your feedback and stuff, and I appreciate it, I respect it, but sometimes I just want to get to the point.
Right.
I want to, but but then again, my wife calls me rude for that. But then again, um, yeah, I'm learning. I gotta be more patient. But yes, anyway, I backtracked here.
You're good.
Oh, so here's a positive feedback for you. So
Thank
I remember see going to season three, we really, I mean, there was a lot of question marks, because we come season two was not the best.
you. No.
We had some ups, we have some good ups, but we had some serious downs. We
Hmm.
had a lot of we just didn't have the personnel, the players, not a lot of seriousness. It was a lot of things we had to rebuild.
Hmm.
We had to. There was times we had to stop halfway.
Right.
Give a break to the team, then come back. Um, so come season three was very successful. I mean, it was awesome. Um, we were still uncertain about who's gonna be tanking. So I remember me and Shadow had this conversation. Well, we're gonna have to prepare our tanks. So we went into VAA, Hell Ross, because I wanted everybody to get a wake up call.
Hmm.
Um, Went into VAA. You were healing, and
Hmm.
I remember someone that had to leave in tanking. So I think it was Clutch. So
Hmm.
I came in with my tank and I came in my Necro. And keep in mind that I was weeks already, like 1 or 2 weeks, just literally every day going to dungeons and making sure I didn't want a healer. What I wanted to do is, I wanted to prepare for trials. So the best way is to get into hard vet content,
Without a healer.
self tech myself, self heal
Hmm.
myself, no healer. So when I get to because I want to the best
The
experimentation
worst
I could get to
experience,
be
right?
yes, the worst. I pug it every
Right.
day. The worst experience I can get to get prepared mentally and physically for trial.
Right.
So I went to VAA, and here, with my little sweaty towel, my fingers are sweaty. We're gonna tackle shadow. VAA.
Right.
Um, Go in there. You're healing, right?
Right.
And um, I have everything ready, but I could swear to you that you're right next to me, and you were just doing your buffs and stuff. And I can tell you that VA felt like cake, even with the axis. It
Right.
it really, like, the heals and the buffs that you were giving were so good
Thank
that
you.
were so good that I can literally tell you I felt like I probably could have one man that. As a matter of fact, I felt that Shadow was one tanking that, because that's how easy it felt,
Nice.
but then, so pretty much what I want to say that, I mean, and I have to congratulate you for that. You
Thanks.
come a long way. And then I'll talk to you about how you started with Garage.
Hmm.
But with that being said, one of the things is what made it easy was two things. One, obviously your buffs,
Right.
your experience. You already knew, hey, this tech is an experience. I gotta make sure he doesn't go down, because if he goes
Hmm.
down, the whole team goes down.
Right.
And you did an excellent job on that.
Thank you.
And then the second thing too is that, and I wish a lot of players do this, is that even though I wouldn't be considered the best tank, one thing is studying, watching videos,
Oh
getting
yeah.
doing the busy work during the week.
I do
And
it
I
with
think a lot of
healing.
people don't.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that
Hmm.
trials, before you ever get into trials, what you do during the week with dungeons and arenas and stuff
Helps.
is your preparation.
It is.
Watching videos, learning mechanics about the trial. Going into the trial should not be hard. It should be fun. It should be fun
Right.
because you've been the whole week preparing for this.
So
And
Children in the North was a great example of that. I spent 2 weeks running KAs, VKAs, and everything just on regular vet, but also studying videos. Like you said, I watched a whole video on the mechanics to make sure I understood and knew what they looked like. What the DD needed to do and everything. And it really does make a difference. It makes a huge difference. I didn't die but once in that whole trial. We did it 3 times. I only died one time. So, and it was because I was familiar with it. And now it's funny when we go into VK, we're at the first boss, and I'm always expecting it to be hard mode. I'm like, "Where's the shamans?" Like I'm looking for the shamans because I integrated myself so much in that trial, for instance, just to make sure I got that clear. And it really does make a huge difference, like you're saying. It makes a massive difference on how
oh
somebody's going
yeah,
to play, especially
oh
tanking.
that is awesome.
Especially tanking. But like for instance, healing. A great example is Vast 2. You're talking about Vast 2, right? Um, the kite healer in that one, the two ends of the kite healers, you got one on one and one on the other end. The one that's behind the tank up there at the front is not even really doing any heals. They're doing a lot of buffs and damage. So like if you don't see that in a video, for instance, you're not gonna really know that as a typical healer if you're just like a straight healer. Like if you're a straight healer, you shouldn't be back there. You're more of an off healer type deal. So it's knowing What like I was a force healer in Shield of the North run. We had a over healer, but I was the one that was keeping force up, helping keep force up and barriers for the group. So, it definitely makes a difference knowing what's going on in preparation.
Oh,
So,
oh yes, definitely. And piggyback on Vast Plus too, because I done it so many times right now, and the reason
hmm
why is because our core does I have a core that's Wednesdays and Thursdays. Um, we're attempting the IR, the no death.
uh huh,
Um, and we've been clearing it 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, ten
nice,
minutes. We're almost there. We just get like two deaths, but sometimes it could get very messy, even though we do it as much. Like one time we only got two deaths. Then the next time we're gonna get it, and then we got like seven deaths. So it's just the nature of Vast plus two,
uh
especially
huh,
when you're trying to get a no death. It's not an easy feat. But
nope,
perfect example of the healer, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but like you said, that healer is more of a buffer, not
right,
really healing. And
nope,
then another thing too is that I really wish, and here's what a lot of healers fail in Vast Plus too. You shouldn't be with 20k health. I mean, if
right,
anything, um, being as tanky as possible will probably be your best bet because you're not, like you said, you're not really healing. You're just buffing.
right.
But like I said, I I know it, but I'm not gonna really give the feedback because who's gonna listen?
Right.
The raid leader has to do it. Unless the raid leader asks me one day. But you know, um, I just respect whoever's raid leading that team. Um,
Right.
everybody does it differently.
I love
Yeah.
a tank that really understands the healer role, because they're usually really good at being able to spec me out to tell me what I need to be doing so I can help the group the most effectively. Um, like I said, I've had really good people as healers show me some stuff too. But healers are a weird class. Like people will say, "Oh, I'm a healer," and they'll have on the typical gear and they'll be healing okay. But then you put them in a trial situation where it's hard stuff or endgame stuff, and they're for some reason it's lackluster or whatever. And it's because healers keep a lot of secrets to themselves about how to heal effectively, making sure that their shit's right so they can do the hard stuff. It's underrated. It really is underrated more than people think, but
Some
it's taken
I would say
years of that. So,
undervalue as well.
yeah.
Like sometimes it's very, especially like in four man,
hmm
where the damage is so high that people
You almost don't need it.
they
Right.
yeah, people sometimes. But in all honesty, I will say that um I always say that, and this is my philosophy of it. I always say that the best rotation, even in format, is always one healer, one tank, one stamina DPS, and one magic DPS.
Right.
I always
To be
think
well
that that's
balanced.
the well balance. But there's a
hmm
lot of content, especially the older content, where damage is so high like Fungal Grotto.
Yeah.
Fungal Grotto is something that you probably don't even need a tank nor a healer.
No.
It's
if
yeah.
you, but when you start, you do. When you're learning
Oh
everything
yeah,
and you're
when you're
learning how to
learning.
play,
Oh, absolutely.
definitely. Now, a lot of okay. So on this warden, for instance, I run 6 different builds on her. You know, I run a DPS build, I run 2 different healing builds, and I run 2 different tank builds, and I have a PvP build on here. So, like, if I'm in a dungeon, for instance, and I go in as a healer, I'll queue as a healer a lot of times. If I see the damage is really low, I just switch over to my DPS and I just figure they can fend for themselves. Because most dungeons, like you said, the damage is so high, I can clear it by myself with a tank. You know, generally speaking, for the most part. So, and that comes with experience too, and years of doing the mechanics and things like that. It's not something that happened overnight. It's not something that's easy to do for a long time, But and you take it for granted when you're one of the older players because you're like, oh man, the damage sucks. I'm just gonna wipe this dungeon up. Because I
Oh
don't want to stand
yes.
here all day. So you don't give them time to
Yes.
learn the mechanics, and you'll find that a lot. Like I do it all the time. I know I'm bad about it. Like if I see it's low, I'm like, screw this. I'm not sitting in here all day. I'm just gonna damage everything for y'all. So,
Oh yeah.
you know. Sometimes as a
Now
healer, I'll do that. So, you know, or I'll tank if there's no tank and they need a tank. I'll swap over to a tank build. Yeah.
okay. Now getting into the fun sensitive parts. Yeah,
Okay.
this is gonna be exciting.
Okay.
All right, so coming into Garage. So this
Yeah.
was a few seasons ago. We I believe this is season two. Season two.
Okay.
Oh, talking about. Did you get, before I go to that? Did you get to see? I did make a thank you video to the whole team.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got to see
I
that.
didn't even get to
Well,
watch it, but I remember you making it.
yeah. So I wanted to make it a little. I actually wanted to make people's gamer tags or even the way your player looks in the game,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't have much time. It was a fast thing to do, so it was a little cheesy, but I think it was still pretty fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, so take a look at that video when you get a
I will.
chance.
I will.
All right. So, talking season, I believe it was like season two.
Uh-huh.
We were going through a up and down season. Mel came into the team.
Right.
During that season, we had a lot of inconsistencies in healers. I mean, we did have healers, but oh boy, it was just a lot of question marks. We had players that were just not very serious.
Right.
We had parsing issues. I mean, it was a whole 9 yards. You had guys come in here who think everyone wanted to share their philosophies. I wouldn't say it was toxic, but it was just it was a time that I had to shout out. I just gotta put my foot down because
We got to build it. Yeah, you got to build
yeah,
it.
we gotta build it. Whoever wants to stay, stay. If not, I told him, I'm like, listen,
Deuces.
I don't care if we don't have enough people. I can just do 4 man until we get the people. But
Right.
we gotta do this right. So season two, we had ups, we have downs. The
Hmm.
positive, we started getting reinforcements. Like we had a good, we had a Kijo, who got invited through our, that helped give a
I
boost.
love
We
Hajiko.
started getting,
Yeah.
we started getting some depth. Then Mel one time mentioned to me about that she used to, I believe, mentor you or vice versa.
Hmm.
Had a lot of potential healing, and you were going through some tough times in your past quarters, and
Yeah.
she really believed in you, and she got you in, and I thought
I
you
love
had a
Mel.
lot of potential.
Thank you.
So yeah, tell me. I mean, we didn't ever really got a chance to talk about that, but tell me a
I
little bit
remember our
about
first meeting.
about about the struggles or what happened and what made you come to garage and
Well,
stuff. It's a little
Mel.
sensitive, I know.
No, it's not. No, it was a good thing. Like,
Okay.
I was having issues, like you said, with core groups. It was about getting the experience as a healer. Time slots are limited, and usually somebody who's healing in a trial is going to be somebody who's been doing it a while, who knows what they're doing. They don't like to take on new healers. It's just because the slots are so limited. There's only two on a team. So I had a lot of bad ups and downs with trying to get on a team or trying to find a team that would let me be there, even though I didn't have the DPS at the time to be able to. Like, I was still hitting like 50 or 60, but I wasn't hitting over where you want to be 70. And I needed somebody that was going to be able to work because I could survive. It was more, and you were always gracious about, "Well, let's work with what you got and let's, see what you can do and everything like that." And so that opened up, that made me more confident of everything and made me go into more stuff and do more things that were more difficult and everything. So I've grown outside of the core group because of the experience with the core. So it's been a good experience in my case, and it's because of your flexibility, Noonie. It always is. And that's what Mel had explained to me, and it's never been toxic as far as I'm concerned. Like, you've always kept it on a very even keel, as far as even when it was rough. I came in later on that season, but it was never toxic. Like, I've been in some super toxic groups that are running their mouth, and I just stay quiet and do what I'm supposed to do. But it was a good opportunity to also see more stuff and you know get things done and give me the confidence I needed. So I appreciated it. I always thought it was a good experience with the garage. That's why I stay
That's
with the
awesome.
garage. So
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the feedback. That's awesome. But
yeah,
I had to be honest. I mean, you grown not just being in the garage. You grown because you also you got exposure. You got reps. You put yourself out
right,
there.
right,
And I think that's awesome because that's how you make you better.
hmm,
Me and Shadow can see the differences.
right.
If anything negative,
It
and I'm
made me
very
more
straight,
serious too
and I'm
about
and I'm
playing.
very straight and I'm very blunt. I don't
Hmm.
lie. I tell you how it is. If any little negative that I would say you would need work on, is and I always said it's probably being more vocal. But
Hmm.
but hey, like everyone has their pros and cons. I have my pros and
Right.
cons.
We always
I
work
for
around it. Like, we talk
yeah
it out and we're good. And yeah, we're always good. Like, we'll
yeah
hash it out and stuff.
yeah.
So, and
Um.
that's good. You've always been good about that. So,
Oh
it's a good
yeah.
thing. I
Um.
respect highly.
Another thing that was difficult, and I think for any healer, is when you're going in, and this is probably the hardest thing, even you coming to garage, is that during that time, we did have a healer ahead of you. We had Mel,
Hmm.
so it was a trick. It was tough because it's like to tell you. I know you have potential, and I know and I know you can be here in the long run, and I knew it was gonna happen, but it's
Hmm.
convincing you to be like, listen, we have a healer ahead of you. can you work as DPS and can you also, you know,
Right.
do a rotation? And that's pretty difficult because in your mind, you know, as a healer, you may think like, oh, why is he trying to think I'm not good enough? It's always
Right.
a mental game. But
It
the
can be
cool,
for
the cool,
some people. I knew that, and it was Eight Puppies who said it to me. He's a big name in the community. He does a lot of videos. He's a really very, very well known, and he's very knowledgeable. And I had a discussion with him, and he was the one who laid it out on the table for me. Like, if you can't DPS, you can't heal. Now, the way it was said was probably a little harsh, but it needed to be said. So when I got on the core and I understood that I had to be able to swap roles between, it made me strive to want to bring the DPS up high enough, which then again made me a better healer. So it's all just been positivity, from the encouragement and everything. So it hasn't been, for me, it hasn't been a negative experience, like I said, Nuni. You know,
yeah,
for some it could be, I guess, because they get in their feelings, and I understand that because criticism is hard to take. It doesn't matter who it comes from. It can come from your spouse or whatever, and it's still gonna hurt, sometimes. But it's all
oh yeah,
about understanding that this is a game. We're here to have fun, but we're also here to get stuff done. So if you really want to get stuff done, you're gonna have to put in the work, and that's what the end game's about. And that's what I think a lot of people they just want to walk in and just do it. You can't do that with the end
yeah,
game in this game. You can't. You just can't. You know. And
absolutely,
that's what makes this game so interesting, though. It has those different levels. You could be a casual player, and you can just casually be really good at what you do, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to get into serious, serious, serious end game content, you're going to have to understand there's going to be different types of work that you need to put in to be able to accomplish those goals and tasks. So
absolutely. And you knowing that you've grown, and the positive about it is that you stuck it out. You stuck it
hmm
out. You didn't give up, and now look, you know, we're in season 4, and you're literally a starter in the garage team. You know, I mean,
yeah, I
you should have
love
been a
it.
long time ago.
Nah,
Um, now,
it's
now, don't get me
exciting.
wrong. I mean, it sucks that Mel, she works one week and is off another week
Uh,
because you know, it's difficult to be like, all right, Dainty, when
Rotate
she's
them back and forth, right?
rotate and then sometimes be support DPS. But I think in the long run, I think it's working because even now, like
Gives me a
when you
break.
don't,
I like
it
it.
gives you
Right.
it gives you a break where you're not obligated to come every week.
Right.
So I mean, you can, you know, because you
Right.
already know you're a support DPS, but you know, it gives you a little breather. So that's
It
pretty cool,
does,
especially with your work
and I like
schedule and
it.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Now another thing too that was tough is that, and this not just your situation, is any healer
hmm
coming in the middle of a season, right?
Right.
People already, teams, DPSs, players, they're already used to a certain way. So coming in as healer and telling your team, hey, we got a new healer, is not always the most comfortable feeling because they already
No.
have expectations. So you being
No.
not vocal, you were pretty quiet. So
Yeah.
you being not vocal, you know, when I had meetings and discussions, I mean, no one said anything bad about you, but I
Mhm.
had to reaffirm this is a healer. This is what she
Right.
does. You know, Mel, you know, and I had to kept it up to make them understand. Listen, this is not just any small Joe. This is a potential for the long run, and
Right.
um, and thank goodness they listen. Well, they better listen because now I kick their ass. But either way, eh, eh, um, either way, looking now, you know, you come in healing. You know, there's no questions, there's no doubts. You know,
Right.
um, yeah. And before we had hot knuckleheads. I mean, just dumbasses. No offense,
And it,
in the
it
team, but um, I like everyone. Don't get me wrong, but I say
yeah,
how it is. It's not that
it's full
people
of
were bad. No
personalities.
one was toxic.
Right.
It's just that people weren't serious. And when
hmm
you're not serious, you're down for chaos. You know. And
Right.
even now, we're going to season 4. There is no guarantee we're gonna clear anything because it's
Right.
hard modes. But at least we'll have some fun and we play together as a team. You know.
Yes, and
And
that's just
we'll
gonna make
get
us
through it.
stronger. Yep.
Yeah,
I
we'll
think
get
we'll
through
do we'll
it.
do fine because they've cleared the vet content and there was some hiccups, but I think it's going to be really good for them if they it's all about if they put in the work and they do the experience. Like I know I'm going to have to look up some stuff too for sure for some of the kind of trials,
Oh
but I'm
yeah,
excited.
absolutely.
I'm excited. So I'm excited for them. I want them to get Shield of the North.
Yeah. Now talking about it, I do have a little bit bad news, but it's also good news too. So
Yay!
and this is where I wish Mel was full time. Um, so um, I had to talk to Grim. He probably will be moving up to the tank role because we are losing a tank.
Okay.
Um, yeah, we're losing Turtle because I mean Turtle's gonna try, but I mean I can't just count with try. You know, I gotta keep the ball rolling. Um, but Grim does want to get. Grim has cleared as a tank all his vet trials, but he wants to get some hard modes. You know, because you know those achievements are good when you're trying to get into other cores and stuff. You know, it just
Right.
looks good. It's good in your resume. So that will mean that if Mel was full time, it would just be you and Mel every week.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
Unfortunately, Mel has to do 1 week another week because of her job. So that
Right.
means that there may be a
New healer?
opportunity where we're gonna need to find a new healer, and
Okay.
it's a tough situation because it's like how do you tell Mel's been here for so long, so how do you tell a new healer like, hey, 1 week you're out, 1 week you're in, especially in a hard mode season. So it's a bit brutal, but we are looking for a sub healer, you know,
I would look for
or
somebody who has not a lot of hard mode clears that is um
has maybe done
experienced
all the
as a
vet
healer.
clears, has done all the
Right.
vet clears, but is lacking in hard mode because you're giving
Right.
them an opportunity, maybe something
Right.
like that.
That's what you're going to want to look for because, like you said, it's you get disappointed. Like you said, roles are limited as a healer, and
Yeah.
it's a hard hurdle to get over to be told you can't come some weeks, because we have somebody like when like VCR when you guys did VCR, I was out that week because Mel was in for that week. I love VCR, love it, Noonie. It's my favorite trial. So I was bummed. But I knew me and Mel rotated, so I was like, "Oh, I'm off this week. Darn, it's my favorite trial." But it was all right. I'll get another rep in there, so
Well,
it'll be
if
fine.
this
You
helps,
know.
but if this helps, I'll put it to you this way. When you weren't there,
Uh
the
huh.
we did
It
clear
was a nightmare. It was a
we did so we did clear VCR. We did clear
yeah.
VCR, but we did clear it, and it wasn't too bad. It was messy, but we cleared it. Then we went back in there, and it just
They did so good.
things didn't click,
Uh huh.
that week. Then
Right.
the following week,
They
and
did so good.
that's where I had a meeting with Shadow. Shadow was like, "There's too many people on the vocal," and I was really annoyed, and I was like, "You know what? No one's gonna talk. I'm gonna raid lead. I'm
Hmm.
gonna raid lead. I don't want no one talking." He's like, "Oh, but you sure you could?" I'm like, "No, I'm doing all the calls. I'm doing it absolutely." And I was a bit stubborn, because but I was like, I'm doing all the calls. And the following week we went in there with you, and Grim, and
They did a
I,
great job.
uh, yeah, and I thought it was excellent.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
did really.
you guys destroyed it.
Yeah, they did great. I was proud of them too.
All your
Because
volumes a little low.
She told me she had prepared me for a catastrophe. I was like, okay, well, I love VCR, so if it does go awry, we can fix it. So, I
Well,
wasn't too concerned anyway going in, but they did great, you know. But it
yeah,
takes time to see it. It takes time to see it. Like you said, like the first run, you're probably not going to get it. I don't know any group that just one bangs stuff unless they're extremely proficient in the game. And there are players like that, but they're far and few between. So, you know. And those are your super sweats that are like,
oh
yay,
yeah,
new vet trial, or new vet dungeon. They go in the first week and they wipe it clean and they get the highest score and all that stuff. There's players like that, but I'm not one of them. So,
yeah. Well, I also think people forget, and here's the biggest misconception: like someone like A Puppies,
mhm.
Nesfeek, all those guys. Yeah, they're heavy sweats, but what people don't understand is these people been doing it for years.
Yeah,
They they
forever.
they s- they spend hours. Yeah. A lot of these cores, they you know what cores they end and disassembled and they quit, or people leave because they don't understand that going through the hard times is what makes you better. Um,
Right.
you think 8 puppies just cleared things in 1 week? No,
No,
maybe
no.
now, but he spent a long time to
Doing
perfect
it
stuff.
forever. Right.
Yeah, he's been doing it forever, and you
So,
gotta
like,
give
even when I
credit.
was offended by him, I knew he was right. It's because of the experience that he has, for instance. So
Yeah,
I knew
the
I knew what he knew what he was talking about.
so here's the thing. Some people may be like, "Oh, someone like a puppy, they were like, oh, he's a jerk. But what people don't realize is this, and I learned this the hard way because I'm a pretty nice guy, but I learned
Hmm.
this that the thing is his patience level is a little different because he's
Hmm.
hours and hours every single day with a group.
Right.
So you're gonna get cranky. Your patience levels is gonna be less,
Hmm.
compared to someone like myself. We do trials once a week. I mean,
Right.
and of course I do with other cores as well because I always want to keep reps and learn.
Hmm.
You always learn something when the more you do it.
You do.
But and I also give people vacations. Like right now, I gave you guys 2 3 weeks off,
Hmm.
so you guys get refresh the batteries. But they are 24/7 on that.
Oh, I know. I'm aware. They're super
Yeah,
sweats.
so their
So
tolerance is going to be much more less.
low, right? It's gonna be lower for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be lower.
And I get that. Like you said, I understood that. Like I said, it may hurt my feelings, but he wasn't wrong. So, I still had to follow the advice, even though it was not said necessarily in the most
The most
gracious
friendliest
way.
way.
Right. But it needed to be said. So it is what it is.
I see.
But
Yeah,
it made me a better player, and then you guys all made me better players, and everybody's made me better players. It's just really, staying positive and being patient and helping each other in the game. Yeah, what the game's
I
about. So all
I
about the
see.
community.
Yeah. All right. So we've been a while here. I know I've bombarded you
Yeah,
with questions and
it's fun,
questions.
Noonie. Yeah,
You
you're
know.
good.
Yeah, but I'm sure you want to play eventually or take your break. But quick
Yeah,
question.
sure.
What does ESO mean to you? Like, how does it affect your real life positively or negatively? And for example, I'll give you my example.
Okay.
I'm married. I'm
Hmm.
married. And I dedicate a lot of time in the game. Obviously, when I was single, I could dedicate more time. Now,
Right.
I have to understand that I have to sometimes just stop and do things,
Right.
because I'm in a so it and my wife's very understanding, but it could take a toll.
It
Sometimes
does.
positive, sometimes negative. How about you? For you?
Um, so my experience has been like I'm married as well, and me and my husband have been together for 16 years, and I've always been a big gamer since he's met me. I've played PC games and everything. So, um, it's a big part of it's a hobby, it's an aspect of my life. Now, thankfully, my husband's real good about it. He has his own hobbies and stuff. So it doesn't too badly affect us as far as like time spent until I've been on this game for too long. So I don't spend near as much time committed to it like I used to because it does interfere with your family. It can interfere with your family if you let it. It's anything in life, it's all about a balance. So you take, the game's fun and all, but it's not reality. And family is always more important than a video game. You make a lot of good friends. I've met amazing, amazing, wonderful people in ESO that I love dearly, and I consider them friends forever. And you know, that's great and all, but we all have our real lives that we have to live and function in. So I think it's very important to take breaks and not let it consume your life. It can be very consuming though. It's a slippery slope with this game. It is. It can be a slippery slope. So it's one thing that
Definitely.
has to be mindful for sure. Depending on the type of personality you have too. Like I very much enjoy this game, so for a long time it did take over a lot of time, but I don't commit as much time anymore as I used to do it. But you get, like you said, I think that comes with time too, with being more advanced in the game. You don't have to grind and drill as hard or as much or as often. You know,
Oh, oh, definitely.
every day it was crafting writs forever for years. Now I don't even do them. So
Yeah, I'm the same way too. Being so
right,
many years, there's just things I just don't do anymore because like you
right,
said, you don't. I mean, we still play a lot to compared to the regular
mm-hmm,
person. Like
right.
like we say we don't, but if we talk to a regular person who's never played a game, who's not a gamer, they'll be
It
like, "Wow,
plays
you."
2 hours a week.
They're like, "Wow, you play a lot." Yeah.
Right.
2 hours for us is nothing. Let's be honest.
I clocked 3,000 hours last year, and I thought I
Yeah.
was doing good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Now,
I don't know
now,
how many days of hours that is, but it's a lot.
now,
So,
here's the fun part. So here's one negative that happens sometimes to me because we're
mhm.
so a lot of times I'm good.
My husband hates this game, by the way.
Mine's too. Mine's too. That's the fun part. So here's the fun part. Here's the fun part. And maybe it's something like this happened to you. So, like you said, we don't play as much as we used to, but we still
Uh-huh.
play a lot. So here's what
Right.
happens. So let's say I tell my wife, all right, Monday, I'm just gonna make an example. Monday, Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday is my core night. Every other day, I'm free to do whatever you want after you come out of work. Okay, so
Right.
so you would think sweet, but guess what? That doesn't always work that way because here's what happens.
No.
Here's what happens. Someone invites me to trials, or I go into and
Uh-huh.
sign up for a trial for
Oh
some
man.
to get some like Claras. I love Claras, so
Right.
or Vass. So I'm like, let me go get the
Right.
reps. So of course, I'm thinking, hey, like but no, it's like now you just broke your promise, and
No.
now
You did.
now you know.
I dare you.
Yeah. So that's how about you? Anything similar? Any
The
story?
line I hear is, "I thought you said you weren't going to play tonight." How long is this going to take? That's what I hear a lot when I
Okay.
get roped into this, and I get roped into those situations too.
Now
So,
here's a personal question, and you don't have to answer it. I mean, it's not bad, but you don't have to answer it.
all right.
Has Elder Scroll ever got you into arguments in
Oh
your
yeah.
relationship?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, hands
Okay.
down. Yeah, definitely. Definitely for sure. It is like I said, it has taken and that's when the argument got, too much. That's when you're like, okay, maybe I need a reality check. Maybe I am spending too much time on this game. You know. And it's because your spouse doesn't want you consuming your life with a video game. Like cuz this game like we talked about can be very time consuming and everything. So, it's more about checking yourself and being like, you're an idiot, quit spending all your time on a video game. Go spend time with your family that matters and is alive and well and loves you and wants to be there for you. So, it's prioritizing like anything in life, and balancing. But it takes about year three is when you get really hardcore sucked into this game because that's when everything kind of opens up the game for you and it becomes a lot more fun to do harder stuff and things like that. So I think it can. You just have to be aware of it. You have to manage it yourself.
Yeah,
But
don't
it takes willpower.
don't let it take it over your life. Like for example, you're watching a movie or your partner's talking to you, and you're like, okay,
You're
honey,
watching it,
here,
yeah, Sophie,
okay, honey, yes,
on your phone.
but then you're doing a trial and you're having like a big happy face in your lips because you cleared a trial, and then your partner's
Right.
looking at you like, man, you look more happy there than with me. I'm like, no,
Right.
I'm like, oh man, you know where this argument's gonna go to.
Oh man. Yep. I know. I know all about it. So yeah, I can. When you're single, like you said, it's a whole nother ball game. You have all the time in the world, but and it can be a respite for some people who are stuck at home, who don't get the chance to socialize very much outside of video games and stuff. So, and there's a lot of long-standing people in the community that are like that. And those are the ones that are going to help you the most with learning the game and stuff. So, and they're usually always available because they're on the game. But that's not always, there's people with lives. Everybody has to be respectful of everybody, I think.
Oh yeah. Now, one more topic before I let you go, because I can
But
go on and on.
yeah, right.
So here's a fun one. Um, Now we meet many different people in this game, good, bad, toxic. So many people, crazy. Now here's the thing, philosophy-wise, all human beings have issues. All human beings
Yeah.
have their pros and cons. Everybody has different philosophies, different beliefs, but if someone was to say, "Hey, Nuni, you're crazy," oh, absolutely, we are. We're human beings. Who's
Right.
not crazy? But however, there are people who are crazy where we mean crazy to the extreme, where they just reach another level of craziness. Um,
Mm.
have you met people like that? I can.
Oh yeah.
I'll say yeah. Um,
Oh, definitely. I have been actually blacklisted from a guild for having a problem with one of the members that had joined who was extremely toxic to the community. Had tons of screenshots proving this person was extremely toxic to the community. It was all over the blacklisting chats for the GMs and everything. And they were put into the guild, and I went to the GM and complained about it and got blacklisted over it because I had a problem with that person being in the guild. Thankfully, they didn't cause any problems there, but they were extremely. I mean, there's been some extremely toxic, like you would never believe. Like I think their goal is to be toxic in the game. There are people. The Riften Kings have been known for years to be you
Terrible.
know, terrible out there in the rift. You know, it's just that's like that in every game though. I feel like you you reap what you sow. So if you seek out those people, you're going to be around toxic people. If you seek out good people, you're going to be around good people. You know,
Yeah.
and if you want to be, you know, an asshole, you're gonna be an asshole. There's no stopping that. So people are going to do what they're going to do. But it's more of just, you know, if you find those people, you block them, get rid of them, ditch them out. You know, there's other people to play with. You know, so it's
Oh,
not something that should be time consuming or take over somebody's life. You know, as far as that sort of goes.
oh yeah.
But
I'm not gonna say all Rifting Kings are bad, but man, oh boy, when you go to the
no,
Rift,
no, it's
one
fun,
one thing when you go to the Rift, especially the corner of the Rift, the best
right?
thing I can tell any player, mute your zone because you will hear things you never heard in your life, pretty much. Oof, holy cow.
It's crazy. So, but
And
yeah, it's an up and down roller coaster. It's like I said, it's a very social game, and it's a great outlet for a lot of people. And I think it can be used positively, like any tool in the world, but it can also be used negatively. It's just about, you know, so can alcohol or anything else. It's just a matter of managing, you know, balancing everything. So
yeah, then you have people
even your
that
toxicity.
oh yeah, then you have people that are spammers.